What's going on, y'all? Episode 7, Let's Be Real podcast. Second episode on the new format. So, for any of y'all who didn't catch it last episode, going to try to make it a little bit more easily digestible for everybody. Keep the episodes a little bit shorter, but we're going to do it twice a week. So, we did one Wednesday. Going to have another one coming to you to Saturday. And so, yeah, let's dive in, man. As y'all know, always got my wine, man. Uh, this episode it's a Mimmo Rosso. So this is a Sicilian wine. It's a blend again, dry, bold. That's just how I like my wine. Y'all know. Uh, Definitely get some fruit in there, a little bit of tobacco flavor, and it's a good value. So if that sounds like something y'all are interested in, I definitely suggest checking that out. And that's what I'm gonna be sipping on tonight. But anyways, y'all, let's go ahead and get started. We had a game last night, or for when this episode drops, a game Thursday. But Broncos Saints, you know, this is a game I would say if it wasn't on Thursday night by itself, most of us probably wouldn't have watched it. Uh, Kind of just two teams that I would say outside of their respective cities right now, not too many people are too interested in. But a couple things that I want to talk about from it. One is just that obviously Sean Payton showing the level of coach he is. I don't think Bo Nix is a very great quarterback. Bo Nix really didn't do too much this last game. But for Sean to dial up what they did and just dominate that game the way they did, definitely just shows that he's the level of coach he is. Also, kind of a little bit of a indictment on Russ, the fact that Sean is dialing it up like this. They're 4-3, and they moved off Russ for Bo Nix. So that's kind of a little bit as far as from the Broncos side of it. I think from the Saints side of it, there's a couple things, man. One, they need Carr back, right? We saw the first couple weeks this offense was humming, and so I think the biggest thing for the Saints right now is just they need to get Derek Carr back. Uh, Obviously, they're still somewhat in that division, but with the Bucks and the Falcons kind of starting to pull away, the sooner they can get him back and the sooner they can start getting back to that winning and that offense being explosive, the better. Another thing from just watching it, I think depending on how these probably this next week or two goes, we might see another coach fired. And it's just this seems kind of like the trend of the year is a lot of coaches on the hot seat. So I think Dennis Allen, who has not really shown too much reason why he should keep his job, um, maybe on the way out, especially if you see them drop and you can see that the division kind of slipping away. I would definitely think their OC Kubiak, who again has shown that in his first year, this offense can be explosive. I think that might honestly be a good upgrade from OC to head coach. And usually I'm not too much of a fan of it, but I think when you have a young OC who's shown potential, I think you almost have to keep him in the building, and not giving him the head coach job could almost run him out the building. And so if they do end up turning this around and stay in the division, the only other thing I could see with the Saints is if they're, can rattle off a few wins and get Carr back and they're still in that fight, I can also see them being buyers at the trade deadline. Obviously, we got that coming up here in a few weeks. So these next few weeks are really going to determine what I think as far as the Saints do moving forward, whether it's reset, get rid of the head coach, or whether it's let's go find some pieces. I think the biggest thing from just kind of what's been out there, Mike Williams to the Saints, I think, again, wide receivers, I don't think move the needle much for a lot of teams. I think the Saints have great offensive weapons already, but he really does fit with kind of their play style. Great solid red zone target, great downfield threat, which is what the Saints do, is they like those big down the field plays. And so it just gives them another weapon like that. I think that could be good for them. So, we'll have to see again kind of what happens over these next few weeks, whether, you know, they drop him and Dennis Allen's out and then no reason to go be a buyer, or, you get a couple wins, you stay in this division, maybe the Bucks or the Falcons drop a game or two, and then maybe you see them go get a Mike Williams. But we'll have to kind of just see where that goes. As far as these games coming up, man, so the games on Sunday, just going over a few of the things and biggest games of the week. Obviously, we're just going to start with what I think is probably at the number one spot for everybody. We got the Super Bowl rematch. So we got Chiefs and Niners. And, it's kind of tough because normally I would say, like, this game is just set to be an incredible game. But both of them have kind of been a little underwhelming this year, right? Obviously for different reasons. Chiefs are 5-0, but I don't think anybody thinks they've been playing incredible football, especially on offense. And then the Niners 3-3, but no CMC. They've been dealing with injuries, and so they're kind of just obviously in the lead of their division, but at a 3-3 record, I don't think many of us foresaw them coming into that, except me, who said they might have a little bit of a bring down from a CMC injury, which ended up what happened. But still, obviously, two of the most talented teams in the league, Super Bowl rematch, so it's got to be the number one watch. And biggest things I want to see out there is, from the Chiefs side of it, I want to see Mahomes starting to get going, man. Obviously he came in as the favorite for MVP. Had a revamped offense with new weapons, but you lose Rasheed for the year. Still haven't seen Hollywood out there, and so they're dealing with injuries, and Pacheco's out. So obviously they haven't been able to kind of get rolling with what we thought they would be coming into the year. Just came out too also that Juju's dealing with. I think he's dealing with a hamstring, and so he was limited. So you're coming into this game down, your top two receivers already, and then your only other player who can win, I would say, on his own in Juju he's going to be out now. And so again, I think this is going to be a game where hopefully you see a Kareem Hunt really kind of emerge again. He's been playing great for them, but also I think you need that vintage Mahomes Kelsey game. I think the Niners or Kelsey's shown that against the Niners he can produce at a high level. And so I think that's what it's going to need to be from them. I'd love to, like I said, see Mahomes start to get going, but it's going to be tough with just the injuries that have been hitting them, basically since preseason. And it just goes to show why it's so hard, especially in a sport like football, but in any sport, to be a back-to-back or go for a three-time championship, is because with any championship run, you got to have some luck. You got to be on the right side of injuries. And especially with a sport like football, it's tough to be playing those extra games every year and stay healthy. And so, hopefully that they can start getting everybody back. I know Rasheed's out for the year, but start getting these guys back, start, kind of integrating them back into the offense towards the end of the year. But right now, again, I think it's just got to be a Mahomes Kelsey show. And so we'll see what happens with that. As far as from the Niners' point of view, I think they have to look at this game as almost a must win, right? Shanahan has shown that he struggles against Andy Reid and the Chiefs. I think the record on them is 0-7 as a head coach and as a coordinator. And so obviously they've had the struggles. You got the 2 Super Bowl losses. I think this game is almost, because obviously you got 2 teams, right, that both of them are looking at Super Bowl this year. They have Super Bowl aspirations. Anything less than a Super Bowl is a disappointment for them. And so from a Niners point of view, it's almost like, you can come out and say, yeah, it doesn't bother us. It's just another game this week. But when you're playing a team that you expect to possibly see in the Super Bowl, and you've shown every year that you can't beat them, and they've beat you twice in the Super Bowl, and when y'all meet in the regular season, they beat you. you almost need it, not so much as for like, we just need a win this week, which everybody wants to win. But you almost need this from a mental standpoint of like, okay, we can actually beat this team. And sometimes you just need that to kind of take you over the hump. And again, if it's a same story and the Chiefs beat you, what does that look like when you're going into the Super Bowl? Again, you're going to say all the right things. Yeah, we know we've never beat them, but it's just another game. We just got to go out, play our game. But at the end of the day, you're dealing with human beings and human nature, and it's going to be nearly impossible, if not completely impossible, to go into a Super Bowl against a team that you've never beat over 8 attempts and not have that in the back of your mind. So, from a standpoint of the Niners, I think you have to win this game if you expect to really be able to go to a Super Bowl against this team and beat them. Obviously, they're going to be down Juwan Jennings, third wide receiver, but he's also been incredible for them this year, stepping up big time. Pearsall is coming back from his injury, and so how fast they integrate him in or how much they integrate him in, we'll see. But the biggest thing for the Niners right now, man, is you got to get CMC back. And so we'll see how Purdy can hold up against that defense. Obviously, they still got the weapons to be able to do damage. And so I think we're in for a good game, man. Especially, like I said, if these teams play to their capabilities, we're in for a good game. And so moving on, another one that I just think is going to be incredible. We got we got a ton of great games this week. Ravens Bucks, man. So we're going to start from the Bucks, man. One biggest question is, can Baker keep on the tear he is on? And so obviously you got Baker right now playing at just an MVP level, and against a Ravens defense where that secondary has just, I think they're second to last in passing defense. So Mike Evans, obviously we saw him come out of the game. He's slated to play, and like we've gone over before with this Bucks team, man, they got weapons. And so against that Ravens secondary that has been prone to giving up a lot of passing yards, I'm not going to say I can't see, because at the end of the day, the Ravens still, they're the Ravens. They're a great, great team. But it's hard for me to see a scenario where Baker doesn't, even if they lose, stay on this tear and really put up some numbers against that Ravens secondary. I think biggest thing with that is, just like any team, is if the Ravens can really get a lot of pressure on him, that'd be the only way. But I don't think if the Ravens can't get pressure on him, I can't see a scenario where they don't get, lit up. And so from the Bucs point of view, that's how you win this game, right? Baker, go out and be the Baker you've been all year against a bad secondary. From the Ravens point of view, the Bucs, they're not a great defense. Not great against the rush, not great against the pass. And so from the Ravens, it's just stick to the same formula, right? Just a ton of Derrick Henry, who is just, man, talk about a resurgence. Granted, he was never bad, but goodness, when you put him with this offense and Lamar Jackson, he's the best running back in the league right now, with all due respect to Saquon. But for the Ravens, it's got to be a lot of the same, man. It's got to be a lot of Derrick Henry, a lot of Lamar running, and then again, I think Zay Flowers, another game where he can have a big game and especially, like you said, get to him early. That's the biggest thing with a lot of wide receivers, man. It's just get them the ball early in the game, let them get in their groove. And against a Bucs secondary that's not great, he could also have a big game. So I think we're in for a light show, man. I think this is going to be a big time scoring game, just with two bad secondaries, two not great defenses, and two quarterbacks with a ton of weapons that can really put up some big numbers. And so I think we're in for a good one on that. That's probably going to be my top watch of the weekend, alongside that Chiefs Niners, just 1A, 1B. And, like I said, man, for We got Baker playing at MVP level, and moving into the Vikings and the Lions, man, we got Sam Darnold and Jared Goff, both who have just been lighting it up. And so, starting on the Lions side, man, I think the biggest thing for them is how are they going to deal with that loss to Hutchinson, right? Uh, Sam Darnold has shown that, like all quarterbacks, if you don't get pressure on them, they're gonna put up numbers. But Sam Darnold has been putting up some big numbers if you can't get pressure on him. The one game that he's really struggled in against the Jets were able to get pressure on him, and so Hutchinson basically in the season so far, I think he's got the same amount of sacks as the rest of the defense. He's got almost the same amount of QB hits. And so when you lose half your sack production and half your pressure to one player, you know, and with a secondary that is okay, not great, and against a team like the Vikings with Sam Darnold dealing, if you can't get that pressure, you got Justin Jefferson, you got Addison, Aaron Jones is looking like he's trending towards playing. This could get dark quick for a Lions team where also coming off that big win, maybe kind of primed for a letdown. And so, really interested to see kind of what that defense looks like with Hutchinson out, and then how much that loss, if it is apparent, if they can't get pressure on the QB and Darnold and the Vikings do come out there and just, you know, torch your defense, how quickly do they move to try to get somebody in? Like a Max Crosby, Hassan Reddick, and kind of will they be willing to overpay for it? I think yes. If for a Max Crosby, I think absolutely. I think he just fits perfectly with the Lions. Hassan Reddick, it's tough, man, because if you trade for him, he's already shown it, new team or not, you're going to have to pay him. I don't know what the Lions books look like as far as being able to pay what he's looking for after you spend the capital on him. And so, see maybe if they go all in for like a Max Crosby, or if they're willing to and able to, kind of pay the less of a premium for Hassan Reddick, but then obviously you got to give him the contract. And so, how desperate do they get if they can't get that pass rush and they do get torched because Lions are in win now mode? On the opposite side, man, you got, the Lions offense, which has been obviously a fireworks show, especially after that Dallas beatdown that they gave them. But the Vikings defense has given a lot of teams trouble. And that Brian Flores over there has been incredible as far as revamping that defense that coming into the year, nobody really thought had a ton of talent on that side of the ball. And so, we've already seen Brock Purdy come out talking about, till Brian Flores said their defense, confused me like crazy. And we've seen that each game they've had, quarterbacks have played below their season. And so with that, we already know Goff, who he's gotten a little bit better against pressure, but his kind of big knock for his whole career has been if you can get to him, then he becomes a shell of himself as far as a quarterback. And so I think obviously going into this, you got the Vikings off a bye, Kevin O'Connell, an offensive head coach, one of the best ones in the league off a bye. Typically you see those kind of guys come out and be great. That mixed with the Lions not being able to really generate a pass rush, I don't think. That secondary being exposed, and then the Vikings defense getting to Goff. I think in name this matchup is a lot more competitive than it'll actually be. And again, especially coupling it with after that Dallas game, typically when you see a team come out, blow somebody out, there's kind of that natural the next week they kind of pull back some. And so I still think it could be a great game. Obviously, when you're talking about two of the best teams in the NFL, to this point, you never know what will happen. And if it is a great game, you can definitely see it. Just from my point of view, with just those things I've laid out, it's hard for me to see. Let me not even say that. It's not hard for me to see, but I just think it's less likely that we see a great game. I think it's more likely that we see the Vikings come out and just dominate. And so we'll see. Either way, it should be an exciting game. Like I said, with all the talent there is on both teams offensively, um, it should be exciting regardless. So, and then we got another, as far as, QB matchups, this one might be even better than, this might be the best QB matchup, I would say, or most interesting. But Texans Packers, man. Look, and again, I've said it multiple times. I'm not a big believer in Jordan Love or the Packers, but they've been playing well. And then CJ Stroud, obviously, for the Texans. Texans, one loss team, 5-1. They've shown that they're a team that is a contender, or at least kind of just outside of the contenders. And so, obviously, we got this young quarterback matchup. Biggest thing, I know we talked about it last, but losing Nico for the Texans, we didn't see it last week that it was a big deal. But at the same time, the Texans are playing the Patriots. And so it's kind of hard to judge it when you're playing a bad team, right? So I think this is probably going to be the week that we really see that Nico being out causing a struggle for the Texans. Obviously, again, not going to shed any tears for him, because as great as Nico is playing, you still got Stephon Diggs, you still got Tank Dell, you still got who is in the backfield, Mixon in the backfield. Like, you have the talent to still be a top offense in the league even without Nico. And I think they will come out, and you'll see that some, but I can see them kind of bringing it back, where we definitely see the offense maybe not clicking as much as we've seen in the past with Nico out there against the Packers defense, who's been pretty solid. And so I think just that's my big watch for, as far as from the Texan side of it, is, can you show me against a solid defense, against a team that can actually play with you, that your offense can still hum like it has been. From the other side of the ball, like I said, man, not a big believer in the Packers. I think that they're kind of a good team, not that kind of Super Bowl contender team that everybody puts them in that kind of category. But what I think we see here is Jordan Love, man, he's been getting away with a lot of, sloppy plays. And that's just kind of the player he is. You got to live with the good and the bad. It's a very Josh Allen kind of quality. But we even saw it the last couple of weeks where, man, some of the throws, he just kind of throws it up there and hope for the best. And to this point, his receivers have been, credit to them. He's got great weapons out there. His receivers have been able to make plays on terrible, terrible throws. But there's a reason why those are considered bad throws. And there's a reason why you don't see guys just throwing up jump balls all game, right? And so I think this is going to be the game where we see those mistakes kind of compound and he doesn't get away with them. And so while I do see the Texans maybe not clicking on offense as much, I don't see the Packers really going out there and dominating or playing very well on offense, because I think those mistakes that Jordan Love, I think those are going to come through this week. So I do think the Texans go out. I think they get a win. I think CJ has good numbers. And I think if CJ is able to go out and get this win and put up some big numbers, I would say he's probably got to be the favorite to win MVP. I know right now I still think Mahomes is the favorite. And I mean, barring what he does against the Niners, may stay the favorite. But, and you got guys like Baker and Darnold, who, granted, his last time we saw him wasn't a great game, but you got those two guys who have had great seasons. Derrick Henry's having a great season. Lamar's having a great season. But obviously just projecting out, I think, you're looking at a 6-1 team in the Texans with CJ playing great. And it's hard for me to not see him moving either ahead of Mahomes to be the favorite, or one of those top two favorites maybe to win MVP. And yeah, I think we're in for a good matchup. Like I said, I think you're going to see some great plays. But I also think this matchup is might not be as clean and offensively focused as we might think it would be, just kind of looking at the early season for these two teams. And let's talk about a game that's not going to be clean, right? And so this will probably look. I'm not even going to say that this is a game that you guys should watch, because I'm only putting it on there because it's my team. Y'all know how I gotta put the Eagles on there, right? And I think this one is more so a must watch, just from like what could come out of this week. So obviously Eagles and Giants could be incredible, could be a blowout, could be an ugly close game. And so I just think with this matchup, you don't know what you're going to get. It is a divisional game, and so these divisional games in the NFC East are always, you know, hard games. But when you look at it, the Giants obviously have not been playing well. But that defense has been able to kind of keep them around in games. We saw them against the Bengals last week. That kept them in the game, but their offense can't score. I think Malik Neighbors should be cleared and should be coming back, so that's going to help that offense some. But the biggest thing, as far as from the Giants' standpoint, is, Daniel Jones has to be un-Daniel Jones-like, and they got to get that offense clicking. But that defense, if the Eagles have shown, Jalen has shown that he'll give you the ball, and so that mixed with missing Mailata, Goddard being out again. Eagles are in a similar situation with the Texans. No one's going to cry because you're losing a weapon when you got A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, John Dotson, Saquon Barkley, right? And so, but that pass rush against the Eagles with Mailata out, we'll see kind of how that can disrupt them. Actually, we'll stay with the Giants because obviously Saquon returning home. And as we all saw with the Hard Knocks and everything, that's not something. Saquon going to the Eagles was the last thing the Giants wanted. And so, one, if they come out and Saquon has a monster game, does that maybe cost the Giants GM his job? Because, we already know the owner wasn't happy in losing Saquon. And it was the GM who, kind of fumbled that whole situation. And so if they come out and embarrass, and Saquon has one of these monster Saquon games, they just blow the doors off the Giants, what kind of ramifications does that have for them? I don't think you can get rid of Daboll. I think Daboll's way too good of a coach. I think if he was to get fired, there's teams lining up to hire him. And so, we'll see what happens with that. But I could see some front office changes being made. As far as from the Eagles side, man, look, it's going to be a trend the whole year until it's not a trend anymore. And the only way I see that is they win a Super Bowl. But Sirianni, man, this is a game, again, we said it coming into the Browns game. I'm going to say it coming into this game. This is going to be a game he's probably coaching for his job. And I think that if it wasn't for the just ridiculousness that followed the game last week, I probably would say he would be safe. Even with just squeaking by the Browns, I'd probably say he's safe. But because of everything that went into it, and again, because just I don't know what he does. He doesn't call the plays, so you're not losing anything there. He's supposed to be the rah-rah guy in the locker room, but the Eagles haven't looked, motivated to play. And so, again, it's when you have all this stuff and you're an offensive head coach, you don't call the plays, you don't get the team riled up, like, what value do you bring? And I think if this game, I think he could have been fired after last week, even after the win. But I think if this game goes poorly, then you definitely see him move on. And again, I think, with the coaches that are out there still in a Belichick, a Vrabel, you could probably get, because of the talent on your team, you could probably get one of those guys to at least take a meeting and possibly take that job. But again, man, the Eagles, it's just been since that kind of downfall of last year, it's been bad. And, just to kind of put it in perspective, the Eagles since last December, right? The only teams they have a better record than are the Panthers, the Jags, New England, and the Titans. And so when you really look at that, Panthers, worst team in the league, quarterback changes, coach is probably getting fired here soon. The Jags, Doug Peterson, probably getting fired. New England, Belichick, fired. And the Titans, Vrabel, fired. So the four teams that have been worse than you since last December have all made coaching changes, or their head coach is probably on that short list of fired in the next couple weeks. And so, again, with how little he provides, with just how bad the team has looked over the last almost calendar year now, this is a game, again, I think if and it's going to be a trend all year again. Any bad teams that you lose to, it's going to kind of come down to, wow, should they fire him? Now, if they can start rattling off some wins here and, start looking good again, we'll see. I still think no matter what the outcome is this year, if he doesn't at least get to the Super Bowl, he's fired. But that'll probably kind of quiet the talks. But man, it's tough, man. It's tough. So we'll see. I think he is coaching for his job again. And against a team like the Giants, they come out and shock the Eagles. I can't see him surviving this week. And so from that, obviously, we got the Sirianni and the Eagles storyline out the way. We've talked about the Jags and Peterson, man. Another one where, man, playing New England, and New England with Drake May, they started to kind of have a little something working there. That defense for the Jags isn't great. Could we maybe see a New England upset? I don't know if New England fans are rooting for that or right now, or if you're more rooting for let's get us a better pick. But I could definitely see a world in where the Jags get upset. And man, at that point, I don't even know if Peterson gets on the team flight home. And so he's going to be another one kind of in a spot where he's going to be coaching for his job. I feel like probably the rest of the season, because those losses start piling up. It's going to be a wrap in one or two. Like I said, if he loses to New England, I can't even see him getting on the plane. But even if you beat New England, you're still so far out of the playoff race that you really got to go on a run. And so we'll kind of see what happens with that. One of the other big storylines, though, uncoaching related, is Bengals and Burrow. Whew. So obviously got the win last week. Didn't look great against the Giants. 17-7, kind of just found a way to win with just more talent on offense. But coming into a game where, again, Burrow and the Bengals, they've kind of given themselves very little wiggle room to work with here for the rest of the year if they want to make the playoffs and, have a chance at contending. And they're going up against a Browns team where obviously the Browns have been terrible. One of the worst teams. If you take out maybe the Panthers, probably the worst team in the league so far this year. But it's also a team that Joe Burrow and the Bengals have struggled to beat. And so, Stefanski is obviously still a great coach. That Browns defense is still good. And so this could be a game where it playing for your season if you're the Bengals. And so that defense is not great. Thankfully, it's not going to have to be with Deshaun Watson as the quarterback on the other end. Honestly, I don't understand the whole still playing Deshaun Watson. I think you have a way better chance to win with Jameis. To me, that screams ownership telling Stefanski that he's got to play Deshaun because of that contract he's getting. And so, again, I think it's going to be tough. Stefanski's still a good coach where he can draw up some plays that if Deshaun Watson can throw a high school level quarterback throw and make that throw that they can score on. They did also just offload Amari Cooper, so down weapons. But if you're Bengal and the Burrow and the Bengals, goodness gracious, if you're Burrow and the Bengals, this is a game where and basically the rest of your season, you got to win. It's getting to the point where you get one or two more losses and you're probably looking like you're not going to make the playoffs. And so we'll see what they can do against a team they've traditionally struggled with over the last few years. And we'll see what the Browns can do as far as with Deshaun Watson at quarterback and no Amari Cooper. But speaking about quarterbacks, man, and quarterback controversies, let's move on. We got the Steelers. And so the Steelers, man, weird position, weird kind of reporting coming out of there. Russ finally healthy, active on the practice field, and taking first team snaps. So a little bit strange there. But it's something where, and I get it if you kind of just want to get him some reps in, but Tomlin being hesitant to name a starter, even though he says he's got one. And again, Fields, granted, he came out in a press conference this week and said, hey, I haven't played well enough to lock up the starting job, which is true. He hasn't played exceptionally, but you're 4-2. He gives you a more dynamic look on offense with his running ability, which you're not going to get with Russ anymore. And then, Russ isn't exactly known as a guy who's great at, kind of spreading the ball around or anything. He's a great deep ball thrower, or used to be. And he used to be a great scrambler. Scrambling, not so much anymore. Still can throw a deep ball, but Justin Fields could throw a deep ball. And so I think it's not quite as dynamic when you look at Russ as a starter compared to Fields. But then you also have George Pickens coming out talking about, kind of alluding to the fact that Russell Wilson is going to be the starter this week, a few hours after Tomlin said he wasn't going to comment on it. And so, again, just really weird. I don't understand what you're doing. To me, what this sounds, we talked about the Browns, right? With the ownership kind of making the decision for the coach. I think this is another thing where either Tomlin or ownership is kind of pushing their way in here to get Russ to start. Obviously, Russ has ties with one of the minority owners of the Steelers. And, I would assume that when he came in, taking that minimum contract like he did, because, and like I said, I was talking about it at the time, but with Russ, the way it worked is Denver pays whatever the team that he goes to doesn't pay on his full deal that he had with the Broncos. So it makes sense from a team bringing him in that, hey, let's give you the minimum. You're going to make the same amount anyways, right? But from a leverage point for Russ, if you come in on that $1 million deal, there's no leverage that you have. They can cut you, say goodbye to $1 million, and it's fine. Now, that's where I think this kind of handshake, under the table deal of, hey, if I come in, I need to know I'm going to start. And that's where I could see maybe ownership, Tomlin, whoever was involved with that, I could see that being the reason why Russ is going to get this, because we've seen Justin Fields, again, they're 4-2. Now it hasn't looked great on offense, but Justin Fields has been more dynamic than Russ will be. And then we've also even seen the OC for the Steelers come out and say that he likes Justin as the quarterback, and basically saying, he's drama free. He's not worried about his brand. He's just out there to play, which also crazy because that's direct shots at Russ, because that's been the knocks around him is Russ is more about his brand. He's more about, the drama and everything. And so to have your OC come out and without putting a name to it, fully take shots at Russ, give his endorsement to Justin Fields, and now it's, kind of coming out that Russ is probably going to be the starter now that he's healthy. Again, to me, that just screams ownership, involvement, head coach involvement, as far as, there was some kind of deal made that wasn't part of the contract deal. And so we'll see what happens with that. But from there, let's talk about, we got the trade deadline coming up in a few weeks. I think we're about 3 weeks out. And so just some deals that I think could be exciting, and some players that I think would be excited on the move that to kind of just watch out for. And so first one, obviously tons of drama around this team. Had the quarterback just call him out, but Mike Williams, right? So I know he's been tied to a lot of teams. I think Chiefs were one, Saints, like we mentioned before. But the team I think that he would probably fit best with, that seems like they might be in the market for a receiver, is the Chargers, man. Get that reunion back. They just traded him out. Maybe you get him on 10 cents on the dollar right now. And so it ends up being a win for you. You get a guy who comes back in. Look, he's got rapport with the quarterback, obviously. The Chargers are a team where they need help on the outside. They've fully established the run with Harbaugh, and so I think that's a place he fits in immediately. Great red zone target again for jump balls, great go runner. So I think that's a team and a fit for Mike Williams. I mean, obviously, look, you look at the Chiefs, the Saints, he fits well, but that's, I would say, the spot that I'd like to see him go the most, and I think he'd be set up for success maybe the most. So Mike Williams, love to see him back to the Chargers. One we talked about earlier, Max Crosby, man. Look, I think with the Lions, it would just be a perfect fit. I think the personality of Max Crosby fits perfectly with the personality in the goodness gracious, what's the word I'm looking for? But just with how Detroit fits and how they play, I think that is the perfect spot for him. I think it'd be, I think he fills obviously a need for them, and so Max Crosby, Lions, gives him a legit shot on a contender, playing in games that matter in the playoffs and make an impact in the playoffs. So love to see him go there. I know the Raiders will come out saying, nope, not going to trade him. He is a Raider, and it's true. He does fit culture. There's the word I was thinking of. Fits the culture in Detroit. He also is he is the culture for that Raiders defense. And so obviously, again, probably going to take a lot to get off for the Raiders to get off him. I don't know if the Raiders are still in some delusional land where they think they're competing, but you just saw him give up Devontae. I don't see the purpose of keeping Max Crosby if you're not going to compete. And so would love to see Crosby to the Lions, man. Look, Lions, whatever y'all got to do, whatever y'all got to give up, do it. You guys need the pass rusher right now, and he's a guy who could be dynamic and, again, get Max Crosby playing in big-time games. Next, man, we're going to go back to the wide receiver position. And this one, I actually do think the Chiefs would be a perfect fit for, and that's Deontay Johnson, man. So it's, come out either him or Thielen, possibly both on the trading block. I know Thielen has been linked to the Chiefs before. Thielen, to me, is just older wide receiver. Obviously, he'll be able to come in, make immediate impact, I think, as far as, he's going to learn the playbook. He's going to be able to, kind of, I think, integrate with Mahomes and that offense quicker. But Deontay Johnson, I would say, would probably be the better fit there, just because Thielen, you got the injury history. And so I would say if I'm the Chiefs, Deontay Johnson's my number one. Obviously, they need help, just period, in the receiver position right now. And so if you do end up getting Thielen, like I said, I don't think it'd be bad. I just think there comes a level of risk with him that you don't quite get with Deontay. And I also think with Deontay, you just get a more talented player at this point of their careers. So I'd love to see the Chiefs go out and get some wide receiver help. And then Next, we got Bryce Young, man. Look, I said this one before. I'll say it again. Look, he's already been benched for Dalton. At that point, it's time to move on. Look, Dolphins, go get him. Go get Bryce Young. I don't know why you haven't already. Maybe they've been working behind the scenes on it, but asking price is just too high. I can't see a world in where you bench your second year QB and then keep him on the roster past the trade deadline and move forward with him in the future. It just doesn't make sense to me. Um, Carolina, though, has shown that they're not really a great organization, so maybe that is what they're going to do. But I think just from what we've seen as far as from a Sam Darnold going to an offensive coach, Baker, now granted, it wasn't to an offensive coach, but to a new team, change of environment, what he's been able to do. We see what Brock Purdy does with, a hugely offensive head coach, and Bryce Young for, granted, I'm not a big believer in him, but clearly more talented naturally than Purdy is, right? And so I would just love to see Purdy. Like I said, I think the Dolphins should have gone out and got him right away. I think that could have really salvaged the season. You can bring him in. But with the Tua thing, man, it's unfortunate, but he's one play away every time he steps on the field. And I hate to say that, but it's just the reality of what it is. And so, anytime he steps on the field, you're at risk of losing your starting quarterback. And the quarterback play they've had up to this point, it's not gonna, there's no real high ceiling there. At least with Bryce, you're talking about a guy who's taken number one overall. There's a ceiling there that's going to be higher than what you got right now. So I say you got to go get him. And then lastly, another guy, right back to the Jets, Hassan Reddick. And this is the one, man, I don't know if there's a place for him. Like I said, maybe the Lions go after him, but I just can't see the Lions picking up that contract on him. And that's going to be the biggest thing with him is he is dug into the ground already. He went out and got Drew Rosenhaus as his agent. He is not going to go anywhere and not get paid. And so he's one where it's, obviously pass rusher is a huge premium in this league. Every team could use a pass rusher. But I don't think there's any teams out there really willing to give him that contract. And I can't see another organization being as dumb as the Jets in trading for him and getting caught where thinking they're not going to have to pay him. And I can't see him coming off of his position at this point because he's so dug in that if you get him, you're going to have to pay him. And so he's one to really keep an eye on. I don't think there's a suitor out there for him, but if there is, obviously a great player and he could definitely make an impact. And so obviously we're going to wrap up the football stuff here, man. I know we're coming up about on the time. And so I'm going to give you all my top 5 teams. I'm going to give you guys the one game I think you need to watch that's not one of those marquee games, and then wrap up with just a little bit of basketball, And so as far as for game I think you guys got to watch this week that's not on that marquee matchup, I'm going Falcons Saints, man. So Falcons, obviously, ton of offensive talent. Seahawks, up and down, but Geno has shown that he can have those big games if he gets on a heater, and also a ton of offensive talent as far as the receivers they got with Jackson Smith and Jigba, DK. You still got can't think of his name right now, but the other receiver there, like they got a ton of talent there. Kenneth Walker still in the backfield is a big time playmaker. And then the Falcons, obviously, they're kind of catching that groove. Still a little bit bumpy in the road, but, with Kirk, Bijan, Algier, Drake London, can't remember the other guy, but Kyle Pitts, their other receiver, you got a ton of talent on that offense. Defense is still trying to come around, still not great. And the Seahawks defense is finally starting to get healthy. They haven't been great, but now they're getting healthy. I think we could see a really, really good game with that. And so I think that might be more exciting than some of those marquee matchups and a better game than some of those marquee matchups. So if you're able to, I would definitely say tune in Falcons Seahawks. As far as the top 5 goes, man, number 1, obviously on a bye week, so they're not going to lose. We got the Chiefs. Still undefeated, still the 2-time champs. No matter how bad they look, that defense is still looking great. And you still got Mahomes, Reed, and Kelsey. So until they start losing, I can't see them falling from number one. Number two, we got the Ravens, man. Granted, like I said, we'll see what happens. I think Baker is going to torch up that defense, but still, offensively, man, one of the scariest teams to play. Derrick Henry, Lamar, Zay, Mark Andrews getting involved again. And so they're at number two. Number three, man, we got the Vikings. And I think depending on the outcome of this one and what I think can happen as far as them beating the Lions, if they beat them the way I think they can, and I think they will, I could see them kind of bumping up to two if the Ravens, you know, don't look as great defensively or if they lose to Baker. But Vikings, man, number three. Number four, and I think they're probably locked into is the Texans. I can't see the Packers beating them. Like I said, I think that they're going to come out and play a great game. So I think Texans at four. And number five, and this is why we're going to see some movement in it, man, we got the Bucks. I got the Bucks at number five. I know I had Falcons last week, I think. And so um, we got the Bucks there now. Just on that bubble, we got Lions, Falcons, and then the Commanders. And so we'll kind of see what happens this week, but we'll definitely at least have some shakeup in that top five. And but yeah, that's the top five. So Chiefs, Ravens, Vikings, Texans, Bucks, man. Top five. And lastly, as we wrap up here, y'all. So just a few, I would say probably about an hour or so ago, game four WNBA, man. Y'all thought I was going to talk about NBA. Not yet. We're going to get to that soon. We're in preseason. I'm excited for the NBA, and we're going to have some great shows on the NBA. But right now, we got the Minnesota Lynx just beat the Liberty to force a game five. And so, look, game five is going to be Sunday, 5 p.m. Pacific on ESPN. I definitely would say check that out, man. This series has been crazy. I think the talent on the Liberty is going to pull them through at home. Ionescu looks like she is on a mission, man. Half court shot for game four or game three to give them that lead. And so, look, that game is going to be crazy. If you like basketball, tune into that game, man. Even if you don't like women's basketball, like, look, if you like basketball, you'll like that game. And so definitely tune into it. And also tune in, man, to our YouTube, our podcast, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Definitely like, subscribe. I appreciate y'all. Again, man. And yeah, like, subscribe, and we'll see y'all next time.